Hi, everyone. Stephanie here from Vegan Mainstream, and it is Webinar Wednesday. So we are really excited about getting started here. Sorry we're running a little bit late, but hopefully you're hanging around there, or if you're catching this on the replay, you'll be excited about what we have to offer and kind of talk about today. I love this type of topic because a lot of times we talk about marketing ideas and the blocking and tackling and, getting out there and putting together processes in place and so forth. And those things are super, super and so important. But where a lot of us struggle or get challenged is in this kind of like non-sexy, non-exciting stuff. It's discipline. And when we're kids, our parents or our guardians or our grandparents or maybe even our sibling will provide us with that discipline. They'll provide us with the structure of how to do things, how to keep the kitchen clean, how to get dressed in the morning, maybe we learn, how to, our grooming, all of those things that we do in life. We kind of have a good how do we do it? And we develop that over time. But as business owners, and especially as new business owners, sometimes it can be hard to figure out, what is my process? How do I organize things? How do I stay focused? Because you're the boss. And if you're not a person that's highly disciplined, you might be struggling because you may not have that skill or that chromosome isn't popping in your DNA to help you. And what I want you to do tonight, or I'm hoping I can inspire you to do tonight, is to come up with some ways to kind of help shore that up, is to get the discipline you need so that you ultimately have the support, have the structure in place to run your business, have really the things that are going to help your business help your business really move along. And a lot of that starts with discipline. It starts with really working on a little bit of you and then putting the tools in place to help make you better. And I love this topic for many of us because I know a lot of you out there are solopreneurs. So it's not necessarily that you have employees or you have other people working for you. And sometimes when we have other people in our space, they help us with that. They help us with deadlines. They help us with, doing things that we would maybe not do if we were left to our own. But I know many of you are working from home. Many of you are working on your small business, just you or maybe you and a partner or one other person. And when you don't have maybe that structure that we're used to at a traditional 9 to 5, we all can struggle. We can all find ourselves looking at the week, looking at the month, looking at the year and say, what happened? I didn't get what I thought done or out of the year or the results I expected or the success I expected. And I hate to break it to you, but most of the time it's because of discipline. So what I want to do today is not beat up on you too much, but what I want to do is inspire you. I want you to really think about how you can do things differently. Now, we have to get started here. I don't want you to think you're going to recreate your business, recreate everything that you do. That's not realistic. What I want to do today is give you something to take away, something to take back to your world, your business world, and think about how you can put some really good discipline in place to help you move forward. So tonight, as you're taking notes, as you're thinking about this, what I want you to do is pluck 1 or 2 ideas out to work on. I don't want you to take everything as if it's a to-do list and you're going to write everything out and do everything I recommend. Instead, I really, really want you to get inspired on what's going to work for you, what can make your business move forward, and how you can put some change in place to help you not only have maybe some of the discipline that you've been lacking, but also help you really move your business where you ultimately want it to be. Okay, so with that, we're going to jump into slides. Let me know on the page. I do take questions during the presentation. I'll be looking on Yahoo, I'm sorry, not Yahoo, go on Google, on YouTube, and I'll also be looking on our event page. So you can post questions any of those places, and I will be checking it out and hopefully being able to answer and give you some feedback on those. Okay, so let's dive into today's presentation. So let's just lay the groundwork for discipline. When I talk about discipline, I'm talking about the set of rules. I'm talking about how you are going to run your business. Now, for many of us, when we talk about setting the rules, when we talk about, how we're going to do things, we start to look at external. We start to think, well, what do other people do? Or how should I do this? But the reality is, while you can benchmark, while you do want to understand how and what other people are doing, I need you to understand that you are the boss. You are the leader. And I know you guys know these things. I'm not saying in the back of your mind, you don't know that you're the boss. But what I want to point out is you have to assume that role in every aspect, not just in the standpoint on who signs the checks, not just on the standpoint of who is deciding what products or services you're going to offer. It also means that when you think about how you operate, how your business operates, you need a set of rules. And the key about these rules is they're not just abstract, they're not just ideas. These are published rules. I mean, it's kind of like in the swimming pool area where it says no running, no this, no that. Same thing for you. You want to have something published. You want something that you can put up on your wall. That's a reminder to you. As your team grows, you may even use these in your office or with others. So it also reinforces those rules. So don't think of this as just an idea, a concept, things that I should be or could be doing. These are rules, and I'm going to talk about a few of them as we go through this presentation. Now, for some of you, you're like, wait a minute, Stephanie. I started my business because I'm dreaming big. I want to make that leap. I'm so excited. And now you want to just weigh me down with rules. And the reality is I'm not trying to give you more structure than what you need. I'm not trying to really kind of pull you out of that stratosphere, because you need that to survive. You need that to come up with great ideas. You need that to be inspired. But what I do want you to do is find the balance, because sometimes we need to dream and sometimes we need to get it done. Sometimes we need to brainstorm and sometimes we need to execute. And that is going to be your challenge in your business, is constantly finding that balance. And what I'm going to kind of suggest to you today is start to understand, what type of structure do you need in your business? What kind of structure or framework is going to help you get things done? Now, that balance is between the structure and flexibility. Because you're a small business, you're not trying to set up things so they can't be changed. So you can't move with the signs of the times, especially with today. I mean, new social media networks come out all the time. New tools come out. There's just so much progression on how technology can help you promote, sell, connect with your customers, that I don't want you to have too much structure that you can't be nimble. But I also don't want you to be too nimble that it feels like water. You don't know what comes next. You don't know what's a priority. You don't know what you do and what you don't do in your business. Same thing on the action side. With some of you out there, maybe you're like, hey, Steph, I got the structure piece down. I know what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it. I plan it. I think about it. I, dream about it. Great. But then you may have a balance problem on the action side. You may be working with too much caution. You may be taking so much time to plan that maybe you're not jumping out. You're not getting it done. So often we're struggling between how much structure do we need to support what we need versus how much action do we need to make sure we get things done. So I want to kind of, I put the slide in here to recognize it is a struggle. It is a pull and push sometimes. So you're trying to find that right balance for you, for your business. So don't worry. It is something that's going to move. It's going to be flexible. It's going to be something you'll master now, and a year from now, you'll have to relook at it, or Maybe you were really good at it. Maybe you're in year 3 of your business and you were good at it in year 1 and year 2, but for some reason it started to slip away. So today's your wake up call or little nudge to say, let's get back. Let's find that balance. Let's get some of these things in place. And the way to do that is to think about what structure do you need. If you're the person that kind of likes to think of an idea and run with it, come up with something, let's see what's going on today or what's happening today, and just run with it. You're a person that probably needs a little bit of structure. So when I think about structure, talk about structure, structure doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. It's a little bit different. Some people need a little bit of heavy planning. Everything's written down, documented, dates, time, owners. Some people just need a general methodology. You need an approach to where you're doing it, while others need just a framework, an outline. They just need to know generally, where do I need to be? Where do I want to be at the end of the week? What do I need to accomplish this month, this quarter, and then get there? So what I want you to do is walk away today. If structure is one of those things that you need, I want you to determine what type of structure you need. Do you need more planning in your life? Do you need more hardcore dates and times and so forth? Or do you really just need a methodology? You just need a way that you approach things in your business. And I'll give you some examples of that a little bit later in the presentation. Or do you just need an outline? Are you a person that, hey, I don't need all that structure. I don't need dates and times, but I definitely need to know this is where I'm starting and this is where I need to finish. And then I can work in the middle and make things happen. Okay? The other thing you may need is some decision-making skills. And what I tell a lot of people is learn to make decisions daily. And I say that because it's all about the strength. To be able to make decisions, you need practice. To get that strength up, that core strength, I mean, to be able to do what these ladies are doing here, it isn't something you do once. You don't just show up at the gym and say, okay, wait a minute, let me just do this real quick. For many of us, especially me included, it's going to take a while. It's going to take some time to get good at making decisions, deciding what you have to do, moving forward, creating tasks, and even some of the things we're going to talk about in today's presentation of the things that you have to put in place to make that structure. So what I want you to do is think of these things as daily practice, as things that you want to kind of build that muscle memory, as they say, or really maybe exercise that muscle to make it strong. And decision making is one of those big muscles, one of those things that you really have to work on every day. And when I say decision making, I mean decide what you're going to do. Not, I'm hoping it'll be a little bit better, or it should be this. You really want to decide, are we going to go after these types of clients? Am I going to use webinars as a marketing strategy? Am I going to do sampling at 5 stores in a month because I want to be able to reach out and reach new customers? Am I going to do email marketing? And if I am, how am I going to do it? Is it going to be personal? Is it going to be a general update? Is it going to be my blog post? Make specific decisions on what you're going to do so you can move forward. Because think about it, especially for many of us as solopreneurs, you're having that inner dialogue. When you give the clue to yourself that you just should get it done, or you may get it done, or you just want to get started on something, what happens is you as the boss are telling yourself, just move forward just a little bit. Just push the pebble 1 inch over. And what happens is you're teaching yourself or training yourself to just move forward, that moving forward in some fashion is enough. And in most cases, moving forward just a little bit every day isn't enough. What we really want you to do is I want you to go a little bit further than that. I want you to visualize, where do you need to be, and make a decision on where you're going to be when. Not just, hey, I'm going to work today until I get tired, or work today until 7 o'clock, or I'm just going to work on this project until it looks right. Instead, I want you to make some decisions. If you struggle with time management, then decide all of your projects are going to be timed. Everything you work on is going to be timed. So if you have to write an email, you're going to work on it in 15 minutes or less. If you have to write a blog post, you're going to work on it an hour and a half or less. If you have to work on a presentation, you're going to work on it for an hour and a half or less. And that's what I want you to start doing, is making decisions on the things that are hard in your business, making decision on how you're going to get stuff done, making a decision and commitment to actually get those things done, and practice it on a daily basis. Make small decisions first, so eventually you'll get better, you'll feel more confident, and it'll be easier for you to make the decisions that you need to make down the line, especially those big ones that maybe you've been struggling with. Okay? So I've kind of talked about generally things that you may be struggling with, things that are maybe challenging you around getting that discipline in place. And for some of you, if your head's been nodding, if you're like, yeah, I need to do a little bit of more, a little bit of that, I need to do that a little bit better, what I want you to do is make today the day that you commit to doing something different. I really want a commitment from you to say, today is the day that I'm going to decide to add more discipline. I'm going to find that discipline that I need. Now, the challenge in this webinar is, for many of you, you have totally different habits and you guys are all doing different things. So I'm going to give you some ideas, some suggestions, some things that you can put in place, or what I kind of call the many common kind of pitfalls that I see people struggle with that hold them back. Okay. So like I said, the end of this webinar, and ultimately, I probably say by the end of the week, I want you to make a commitment. So if you're making a note, write down right now, say, I commit to. And at the end of this webinar, I want you to fill in that blank and tell me what you're going to be committing to. Okay. And then if you really want extra credit points, take a picture of it and tweet it. Tweet it to us at Vegan Mainstream and use the hashtag VM marketing, because I'd love to hear what commitments or changes you guys are making. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. Let's talk about some steps, some things that we can do. Now, I put these in steps. You can do them in different order, obviously, depending on who you are, but I like to start from the top. So that's why I like to use these step one. And the number one thing that I think a lot of people really need to do is you have to limit those distractions. Most of us, the reason we are struggling with our discipline, we are struggling with doing or getting done what we need to get done, is because distractions are everywhere. Many of you, maybe you're working from home. If you're working from home, set work hours. Even if you work in your own office, or maybe you do have, maybe you've rented out an office, or maybe you have your own space or storefront because maybe you're doing retail, maybe you have your own manufacturing, or maybe you're doing a shared kitchen. I need you to set work hours. This is probably the number one thing that I see small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs fall down on, because what we tend to do is we tend to generally go to work. If you work from home, then maybe you have an office or you have a little desk area and you get on your computer and you're kind of like, well, I'm at work now. However, the reality is you start doing other stuff. You start working on personal things. Maybe your friend calls in the middle of the day. Maybe you're like, oh, I got to go wash clothes. So I'm going to run downstairs and wash clothes. Oh, I'm going to make some lunch for the family. Oh, I'm going to plan this. And what happens is those distractions start to creep in. We start to do other things that are outside of our business world. And it's natural. I don't want you to point the finger, or I'm not about shaming anyone here, because it happens to me too. But what I want you to do is strive to do better. And the first place and the first way to do that is with set work hours. Now, when I say set work hours, many of us think about the 9 to 5. We think about, hey, traditionally, these are the hours that people work. Now, the awesome part about being your own boss is you get to set those hours. You get to decide. So if you're an uber morning person, you may work from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 6 to noon. And then you may check out for 3 hours or 4 hours because you have to do some personal errands. Maybe the kids are getting home from school. Maybe you do have to prepare lunch and so forth. That's fine. But what I want you to do is have a solid block of work time. I don't want you to weave work and personal and TV and fun time. I don't want those things all weaved together. What we want to do instead is have set time, because there's a reason why when you work for other people, there's a specific time that you go into work. It helps you focus. It helps you work on what needs to be done and get those things done. So please, 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 if this is something you haven't done in your business, highly, highly, highly recommend it. And it may be even something as simple. Once you set those work hours, if you have an office, then close the door during those hours. When I say close the door, it's helping you cut off from the rest of the world. Not, and maybe cut off is a bad way to say it, but it's helping you kind of let the visual distractions stop. I have to do that sometimes in my own house because my cat's coming in, so I'm playing with my cat. It's so easy for little things to allow you to focus on them instead of your work. Okay. The next thing I want you to talk about when I talk about work hours is work hours do not have to be Monday through Friday. If you do have a full-time job, same thing applies. I don't want you to think, hey, well, I'm working part-time on my business, so I do it when I can. And the reality is there's really no such thing as do it when I can. You should have set work hours. Now, you can always work more, but at a minimum, you might say, hey, I work 2 nights a week. Or I work on Saturday from these hours, and then 1 night a week, I work for 3 hours. Set those times so you know you show up. Also, anyone who works for you or any people that you hire, maybe part-time, they know you're going to show up. They know when to expect information, content, and stuff from you. So it's going to really help not just you move forward, but ultimately bring your team forward. Okay? All right, so we talked about the distractions. What's the next thing that's going to help smooth out your business, help you get a little bit things done? What I kind of call my number 2 is stop procrastinating. Now, I know it's so easy to say it, and I know many of us do it, but the reality is you really have to work on what structure do you need to help you to stop procrastinating. For many of us, procrastination is because it's something we don't want to do, because it's something that we think is hard, because it's something that we haven't thought about yet. So we're kind of delaying the process. Or maybe, like I was talking earlier, you're delaying making a decision so you can't actually work on it. Now, the challenge with procrastination is often procrastination yields itself to fire drills. So instead of being ahead of the curve, instead of being, not so much a stress bucket, or a pile of stress, if you procrastinate, what tends to happen is everything feels like it has to be done at the last minute. So you're always rushing out the door. You're always getting those emails out the final hour. You're always working on a presentation right before it goes live. And what we want to do is we want to remove some of that stress out of your life, because we all know stress isn't a great thing. And it's even worse if it's self-inflicted. So I want you to really think about, what can I do to get me away from that procrastination? And the biggest tool I find that helps people is creating project plans. Now, for many of you out there, we're back to that question of how much structure you need. Some of us need more than others. So depending on how much structure you need, you may choose either a different type of project management tool. And I put 3 of them down here: Asana, Trello, and Basecamp. And I actually use all 3 right now. And I completely love them and use them. I use all 3 in different ways and with different clients. So I recommend them all, but decide which ones work for you. Asana has a free option to it, and Trello has a free option. Basecamp is about $20 a month, so it's fairly reasonable. There's some other great tools out there as well. I just didn't list them because I wanted to get you started with something. But at the end of the day, a project plan is really going to be your friend. And the reason being is a lot of times we do procrastination is twofold. Some of it's intentional and some of it is unintentional. And a lot of times that unintentional piece is because we forget about things. What we're trying to do is keep all of our tasks, our ideas, things like that in our heads. We're trying to say, well, I'm going to try to get these things done. And what I want you to do is get that out of your head. I want you to contribute your memory to something else of value. Instead, I want you to use these project plans to help you kind of relieve that process on your brain, that idea you constantly have to remember. Also, I want you to use these project plans is because when you start to list everything out that needs to be done, you can prioritize things, because now you have a wider view. You're not just thinking about what's on your mind or what you remember or what the last email that came in, or the last complaint that you saw, or the last person that called you and asked you to do something. Because that order is based on really just happenstance. Instead, I want you to be in the driver's seat. I want you to say what's first, second, third. And to do that, you have to use project plans. And ultimately, what I want to challenge you to do is to have daily and weekly to-do lists. Okay? Now, for many of us, we do project planning or we do business planning at the end of the year. You know what projects you want to work on, you want to know what you want to accomplish, and so forth. But those things have to drill down to reality. And the drill down to reality is that daily and weekly to-do list. And what that means is before you start the week on a Monday, if you're a Monday through Friday kind of person, if you're a weekend person, then maybe on a Friday, you're going to go through the exercise of making sure you know what needs to be done for that next week and for the next day that you work. So if you're working on Saturday, Friday, you want to put together that to-do list. So when Friday you start, if you're that 6:30 a.m. person, because you're the morning person, if you're maybe more of an afternoon snoozer, so at 1 o'clock you wake up and you start, revving the engines and working, I want to make sure you have a list in front of you of what needs to get done. And that list should be pretty detailed, meaning if it's an email you have to get out today, if you have to respond to customer service issues, if you have to pack up products, if you have to load tracking numbers into your website, if you have to work on the edits for your book because your editor is waiting for it, whatever those things are, they should be listed out, and list them out in exhaustion. Don't try to consolidate too much. What I tell people a lot of times, if you got 50 things on your mind, let's write down 50 things. Now, 50 things will probably not be on your daily list, but what happens is once you start getting that kind of dump of ideas out, that first dump, what we'll do is we'll organize those by week. We'll say, what are we going to do over the next 2, 3, or 4 weeks to get that initial 50 ideas kind of organized. And then from there, because you're going to have a weekly and daily exercise of updating your to-do list, what should often happen is you're only going to be adding 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or a few things on a weekly and daily basis. So therefore, we shouldn't get to the point where we have this overwhelming, crazy to-do list, because we've attacked it up front, created a process for that initial dump, and then after that, we have this in place. And that's going to help you. It's going to keep you not only from procrastinating, it's going to allow you to maybe get ahead of schedule on things. If you have a team or you reach out to other people, it will keep you from sending other people last-minute requests. And then ultimately, what this can lean into is it may help you start to get a little bit time back in your day so you have more time to think about these tasks, think about the best approach for these tasks and getting things done, which is going to lean nicely into my number 3 item. And my number 3 item is all about leverage. Now, when you start to understand where you're going on a daily basis, what you're going to be doing on a weekly basis, now you have a little bit bigger vision, a little bit bigger view of your world. And when you do, what I find often works well for people is putting together kind of the process or the discipline around leveraging your work, that rinse and repeat process. And what this kind of, I guess, translates into is, instead of treating things in your business as these like super special ideas and, oh, what if I chase down this concept, or what if I try to, move this huge boulder, and what that translates into, maybe in business terms, is when you try to work on, let's say, an ebook, and you spend a week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks working on the perfect, most amazing ebook. Instead, what I want you to do is start to say, well, do I need, in a sense, more than one ebook? Do I need to put together a process around ebooks? If I want to test it out, how am I going to turn this into work that I can leverage? And for most of that, what that means is doing batch work. It's just like from a cooking standpoint, where a lot of us will do batch cooking. We'll cook a lot of food or a lot of items up front, eat them through the week. We want to do the same thing in your business. What I want you to think about is, hey, if I want to do an ebook, maybe you work on the template first. Maybe work on the layout of it or how you think it will work. Then fill it in with content. Same thing with a flyer. Work on the template approach first, then populate it for that special event. Because then what we do is by having a template in place, every time you need a flyer, you have a template. You know how it's going to work, where the image is going to go, where the logo is going to go, date, location, URL, and so forth. You don't have to look at it or start with a blank sheet of paper and say, well, did I forget anything or did I miss anything? The reason is you won't miss those things because we've set it up for a rinse and repeat process. We've set up things so that the hard work that you initially put into it can be leveraged over time. So therefore, if it did take you a few hours to maybe put together that first newsletter, that first presentation, that first flyer, what'll happen is it becomes incrementally faster down the line. And therefore, when I take all that time put together from a marketing standpoint, you're going to have a reduction in that investment. Instead of it taking you maybe 2 hours, 3 hours every time you make a flyer, what we may find is it takes you an hour and a half to make a template. And from then on out, you're able to make flyers in 30 minutes. All right. The other thing I want you to think about is what else can you do in batch format? I find newsletters are an awesome thing to do. When I say newsletters, I mean, getting out your emails. So say, for example, if you send out emails on a maybe weekly basis, what you may want to do is you may work on all 4 emails for that month at once. It doesn't mean you won't tweak it. It doesn't mean something might not come up and you might say, oh, I want to make a change or update it. But what I want you to do is leverage that time. When you're in that creative space, when you're in that idea of writing and content and layout and newsletter and what's the best approach, what kind of content, instead of working on one email and then a week later you have to get your mind back into that zone, I want you to leverage being in that zone and put out 3 or 4 newsletters. You'll schedule them in MailChimp and so forth. So therefore, they'll still go out with the frequency that you like, but I want you to do more leveraging. Same thing goes with blog posts. Write a couple of blog posts at a time. Write about a couple of different topics at a time. Get that leverage while you have something in your head, while you're working on something, while you're teaching something. If you're an author, maybe what you're going to do is take a topic from your book or a chapter from your book and write multiple blog posts about it. You may release those blog posts throughout the year. You actually may, in a sense, you may write 10 blog posts and release 1 per month moving forward. So there's ways that you can not only get ahead of the game by doing this, but it also helps you really leverage the energy, the effort, and the things that you're putting into building your business, the work that you're doing and making and getting things done. And this is going to help you also on that procrastination side. Because if you're a person like me that struggles with writing, when I get in the zone, when I finally crack that really piece that I guess that barrier that was holding me back, and I start writing, I'm ready to go. I'm almost a floodgate at that point. And if I stop, then I have to get back in that mode. So now what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to write more. I'm starting to write down multiple concepts, multiple articles. I might write an article too long, and in a sense, it may turn into 2 articles. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that of the work you're doing, you're getting more out of it, or you're batching it together so those skills are being used over and over and over. Okay? And then the last idea that I want to talk about tonight is what I kind of call step 4, and this is about wasting resources. Now, the reason you need a ton of discipline around this is because one of your most crucial resources for you is your money. And for many of us, we struggle with that because we either have money or we don't have money. And when you have money, it's so easy to just spend it. It's so easy to burn through it. When you start to have a tight budget and you don't have as much money in your business, I find more of us operate our businesses better and more efficiently. Now, it's hard to, I'm not recommending that you burn through all the cash or you learn how to have good discipline Or you wait until you have good discipline for when you don't have money in your business? Because that's how most of us get the discipline. What I want you to do is I want you to flip that around. I want you to put the structure. I want you to put the processes in place in your business. I want you to do things that will help you get where you want to be. So you don't have to wait until you get to dire times to do what you've always should have done. And that starts with having a monthly budget for your business. Now, for some of you, if you're a financial guru, then you probably got the amazing spreadsheet, it talks about all where your income's coming from, where your expenses are, the breakdown of it. You may be doing year over year numbers. You may be looking year to date spend. I love that stuff. That's just music to my ears. For some of you, I just gave you a headache, and that's not what you really are ready to do. And I understand that. We all have to kind of live in our lane and live the way we are. But what I want you to do is work in kind of your own, the lane you are in. I want you to tighten it up. I'm not trying to make you into a financial guru. What I really want you to do is say, well, if I'm too loosey-goosey, like we talked about before, I'm just too loose, let me give myself a little bit of framework around my budget. If I'm okay on framework, but I'm finding I'm not getting where I need to do, then like we talked about earlier, I'm going to want you to kind of bump things up. And I want you to actually put a little bit more, I'm going to bump up here, a little bit of methodology around how you're going to do it. I want you to actually say, what is my process around my budget? How do I manage it? How do I spend it? What do I spend my money on? And then for other of you that are like me and love planning, then you're going to start planning and you're going to say, how am I going to spend my money? And what that means is you're going to estimate your cost out for the next 90 days. Now, yes, things pop up. Maybe you make food, or maybe you make vegan shoes or clothing. And yeah, your sewing machine breaks, you'll have to buy a new one. That's something you can't anticipate. Things break, things happen. We'll have to manage that. But you know what kind of supplies you need. You know what your inventory is. As far as the machinery or the things that you use, even your computer. If your computer is 10 years old, you're probably going to need a computer soon. It's probably not going to make it. Now, you may make it another year, you may make it another 3 months. But what I want you to do is expenses that you know are coming down the pipe, I want you to plan for that. I want you to say, these are my big expenses for the year that I anticipate. Maybe big things like equipment cost. And equipment can be manufacturing equipment. It can be computer, phones, any of those big things that will become a big cost for you. And then what I also want you to look at is, what are your monthly costs? So we understand this is how much money I anticipate coming in. This is how much money I anticipate spending every month. And this is any extra money that I may use on different projects. So say, for example, maybe you do sampling. So you're going to have an additional budget for additional sampling that month. If you can get a couple of new locations, if you're able to go to a farmer's market, you'll squeeze them in because you have a little bit of extra budget for that. But we're planned for that budget. Maybe you do products. If you do products and maybe you do some types of free, maybe you do some giveaways, you may put in a giveaway budget. So if you're going to give away a purse, or you're going to give away a vegan belt or wallet, then we want to have that in the budget. And the reason I want you to do this, or put that kind of rigor a little bit into your business, is because money worries and stresses many of us. And often the reason we don't maybe make the money we need is sometimes we just keep earning it and spending it. We just earn it and spend it. And what's happening is you're making more money, you're bringing in more money, but you're burning through it as fast as you're earning it. So if you make $1,500 and then you spend $1,400, that's still only $100. If you make $50,000 and you're actually burning through $49,000, then you only have $1,000 to your name. Yes, it's bigger numbers. Yes, you brought in more money, but if you're burning it, you're really not that better off than you were making $100 in a year versus $1,000 a year. It's still not enough money. So that's why I want you to get down to that monthly budget. That's why I want you to start to understand what you will and will not spend, regardless of the income. Because say you have a great month It doesn't mean you spend more that month because you have a budget. You stick to that budget. You use the discipline you have around that budget to make sure you operate your business on the expenses that it should take to run your business, as opposed to operating your business on what's in your bank account or what's available, as if it's an unlimited resource until it goes to zero. All right. The other thing I want you to do is value people. I truly, truly, truly mean this. And the reason I say that is a lot of times people waste the resources or the things at our fingertips. And I know it sounds weird to call a person a resource, but the reason I say that, and that's, why you get things like human resources and so forth, is I want you to realize that people have value. The people that are helping you, the people volunteering in your business, the people that maybe even work for you 2 hours, maybe it's the coder, the designer. A lot of times we tend to just dump on these people or just use them up or use them as much as we can or give them last minute requests or huge hurdles and things like that. And what happens is you won't have those resources around when you need them. You won't be able to lean on them when you need them if you burn them up, if you use them up. Same thing goes with your team. If your team always feels stressed, if you're always putting so many tasks in your project management team where your team can't get them done, then your team's always going to feel behind. They're always going to feel like they aren't doing enough. They aren't doing it right because they can't get to the point where they're on schedule. And that is by your design. And that's something you can change. You need to have the discipline to actually schedule what can be done for your team in a realistic time. Now, if you don't have a team and it's you, I hate to say it, but you have to do the same thing to you. You have to be a leader. You have to not overextend yourself. You can't burn yourself out. There's no benefit in you being so exhausted that you can't get out of bed in the morning. Yes, you'll be able to say, okay, I want to wear the badge that I worked so hard. I worked myself till I passed out. That's really not the award you want. Instead, what you want is you want to become smarter in how you use you, how you value yourself, and you also want to be a leader in your business and figure out how to reduce rework. Rework comes down to you and your team. And what you also want to do is provide clear ideas, clear projects, clearly know what you're going to work on, when you're going to work on. So if you are working with a team or if you're working with other individuals, I want you to have a process on how you actually send information over. Is it a detailed report? Is it a creative brief if you're sending it to your designer? If it's going over to your coder, do you have a project management tool so that they get a list of all the projects that need to be done with the dates, with the access codes, all that information organized and set up so that when your coder comes online or your coder comes in the office, they're ready to rock and roll. They're not waiting for you. They're not looking for every morsel of every project that has to be done. They can move forward. They can make it happen. And all of that goes back to where we started. It goes back to you making the rules. It goes back to you and saying, what is the way I operate? What are the hours that I work? What is my process for informing my team? How do I manage my money so I have the right budget in place? Can I leverage my work so I can do batch work or so I can do templates so I can get more out of the time that I put in place? Do I do daily and weekly to-do lists so I know where I'm going, what needs to be worked on, and I can work on things in priorities and I don't create fire drills? It keeps me from procrastinating, as well as when I have that daily project, I know what's second and I get done what's two before I do number 3 on the list. That's going to help you get there. So I want you to do is strive as much as you can and get those pens out because I'm ready for you to make your commitment to what rules are you going to put in place. I try to give you an idea of things that you can do. There's so many more. There's more that we can talk about. I write about it on my blog, so you can always go in there and take a peek at those ideas as well. But I wanted to get that process going tonight with a couple of these steps. So I hope by the end of this call, you're able to write down and say, I commit to what? Is it your hours? Is it your work? Is it your to-do list? What are you going to do differently so you have better discipline in your business so we can smooth out the edges, help you make more money, be more successful, and ultimately have a great team behind you? Okay? So with that, that is today's webinar. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness, I just noticed the time. We are so close to the hour. I thought I'd have a little bit more time. Just want to see if there's any questions about what we talked about. Anyone not only struggling with discipline, any questions about things that you wish you had done or things that I didn't touch on tonight, which is something that you struggle with as far as the discipline item that you want me to comment on or provide some feedback on. The other thing is, if you are online and you don't feel too shy, I'd love, love, love to hear what your commitment is. So you can just type in "I commit to" and fill in that blank. I'd love to see it. That'll get me really excited, and I think it would be cool to see it. Oh, I see someone here that they're going to commit to those work hours. That's good to hear. Let me look one where, oh, somebody is going to work on their list. They made a comment about their procrastination. Love that. So yes, I see a person's going to commit to getting those to-do lists. I see someone has a question here about follow through and what their struggle here is kind of, I guess, your question here is about, I start off and create tasks. However, I find that I don't follow through. So at the end of the week, I always have a whole bunch of open projects and open ideas or things I haven't worked on. Okay. So here is my recommendation. If you're a person that's struggling with the follow through, what you really have to do is you have to put things in order of what needs to be done. Because what you're probably doing is you're bouncing from idea to idea, and projects are seen to you as open-ended, meaning anything can be worked on at any time. And what I want you to do is maybe work on putting a structure in place that I like to do is if I see I have, let's say, for example, to make it simple, I have 10 tasks I want to get done in the week. What I'll do is I'll assign a project to a day. So project 1 and 2 will be Monday. Project 3 and 4 will be Wednesday. Project 5 and 6, project 2 and 3 will be Tuesday. Project 3 and 4 will be Wednesday. And when I do that, or the reason I do that, is I try to give myself ample time to get it done, as well as I lock it in by the day. And by locking it in by the day, it helps me on that follow through piece because I'm saying that this is the day it has to be done and has to be complete. I'm not giving myself the whole week. So if I'm struggling with, giving myself a little bit too much freedom, it kind of locks it down. As well as by linking it to the day, what you can do now is you can start to see how do you move from one project to another. Instead of 20% on one project, 20% on the other, we want to move you more towards completion on those projects. And when you start to link it to a day, it starts to train you to complete as opposed to work on. So that would probably be my suggestion. And also just kind of work on that idea that when I start something, when I work on something, I want to complete that task. Now, some people struggle because their projects are too big. So your bucket has really like 10 projects in it, and that's why you never feel like you're getting done. What I would recommend is break those up into tasks. Projects should be a heading, and below every project should be tasks. So when you're looking at things on a weekly basis, you're really going to drill down to tasks. You're going to drill down to things. Tasks should be things that take 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours, something you can quantify in hours. Maybe it's a 2-day task, but most things should be something you can wrap up in a day or less. Otherwise, I would break that up into a separate task, because what's happening to you is your things to work on are just too big. And therefore, because they're too big, you're struggling to get to that finish line. Or your things are so big that they require so many different steps that have different timing, meaning you finish one project, then you have to send it to someone else, wait for it to get back, then you work on it some more. If you start to lump all of that into the same task, you're kind of, I guess, idle time or approval time, or the time it has to sit in someone else's box, or time that you maybe have to, you write it and then edit it yourself. You're putting that in the middle of your project middle of your task. And what I like to do is break those up into separate tasks. Okay. So that's what I'd recommend. Other than that, any other questions? I see some comments on here. People are saying this is good. This is inspiring. Yep. I know someone said they want to do a lot. They liked a lot of the ideas on here, but I'm going to make one. I'm going to recommend, yep, just commit to one or two of these things just to get started if you're struggling. Oh, I see someone else here said that they're going to commit to limiting their distractions. That's great to hear. I hope the suggestions I gave for you are good. Like I said, if you need any more ideas about finding discipline, recommendations on things you can do, definitely check out our blog, our vegan business blog, because we're publishing articles all this month about discipline, about focus, execution. We're really running through many of those skills that we all need to be great leaders. Okay. So with that, thank you for the webinar. I'm glad I'm hearing you guys in the comments are saying that you enjoyed it. That is wonderful. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks as always for participating. Thank you for your comments. And we'll see you at our next webinar Wednesday. All right, take care. Bye.